The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger. Chapter 7, Part 8. In fact, I might almost say that the Umilumbas were all legs. So out of proportion was the development of their limbs. The effect of this disproportion may be easily imagined. It so dwarfed their bodies that they appeared like cones set upon two legs. "Miscreant!" cried the leader, as I learned 3 days later when I had mastered their language. "If thou dost not instantly admit that His Majesty Ga-Ro, King of the Umilumbas, is not the fastest, farthest, and most graceful jumper in the world, thou shalt be kicked to death without the least ceremony." I made the signs that I was quite willing to admit this, although I didn't understand exactly what it was. Seeing that I was not disposed to attempt any harm, the manhoppers sprang to their feet and seated themselves in a perfect ring around Bulger and me, like so many rabbits when standing on their hind feet to reach something, intent upon getting a good look at us, or rather at me, for Bulger was evidently no great novelty for them. They kept up a perfect rattle of remarks in shrill piping tones upon my personal appearance. I, too, was by no means idle. I kept even pace with their galloping curiosity, studying the expression of their faces and the movements of their bodies. After a few moments, I was given to understand that I must start at once for the palace of their gracious monarch, Go-Ru, the 1000th, for they were a very ancient people. As I rose to my feet and took a few steps toward the water, intending to assure them that I could not leap across the stream, it became their turn to laugh. And laugh they did too, with such spirit, such heartiness, I might almost say such violence, that I never realized till then that they laugh best who laugh last. Again and again their piping pygmy voices broke out in shrill chorus, while their pretty doll faces were convulsed with merriment. Bulger repeatedly showed his teeth and gave vent to short, spiteful barks, as the Umilumbas continued their, to him, unseemly behavior. But I knew it would only injure us in the end if I showed any signs of anger, so I simply shrugged my shoulders and waited for them to recover from their fits of merriment. Finally, between the pauses of laughter, I caught such words as pendulum legs, man scissors, man tongs, flip flop, wiggle waggle. Here she goes, there she goes. Such were a few of the terms expressive of the impressions which my poor unoffending legs made upon the minds of the Umilumbas. They quieted down at last, and again began to make signs that I should prepare to follow them. When at last I succeeded in making them understand that I was not a jumper and could no more leap across the stream in front of us than I could hop over the moon, their mirth now gave place to disgust. Such pleasant faces as lead legs, two-legged snail, little man stuck in the ground, little man tied to his head, etc., were fired at me. After a consultation, it was determined to dispatch two of their number for a sort of post-chaise in use among the Umilumbas, in which to transport Bulger and me to the king's palace. Away went the messengers like the wind, in leaps of 20 feet, seeming scarcely to touch the ground, bounding along in the distance like pith-balls. After a short delay, they reappeared, bearing, slung on a sort of yoke resting upon their shoulders, a stout wicker basket. Bulger and I were invited to step into it. The cover was closed and securely fastened by a stout leathern thong. Then, with a bumpety-bump sort of motion, away we went across land and water. Bulger whined piteously and fixed his lustrous eyes upon me, as if to say, "Little master, if they are transporting us to torture or death, I'm glad I'm with thee." I soon gave him to understand that there was no danger. He returned my caress, and we both awaited further developments. It seems that the two manhoppers who had been sent for the post-chaise had spread the news of their strange capture, so the whole town was on the watch for our arrival. At last we came to a full stop. The basket was set down on the ground, and the leather and thong loosened. To tell the truth, I was as anxious to see as they were. A terrible hubbub was in progress, those in authority having seemingly lost control over the pushing, pulling, scrambling mass of Umilumbas. With such violent outcries and still more violent gestures did they gather about us, that I began to fear that they would overturn our carriage and do Bulger and me some real injury in their mad curiosity. Suddenly, a voice louder and shriller than all the rest called out, "Silence! His Majesty Go-Ru, the 1000th, King of the Umilumbas, is approaching. Down, down! Silence! Fall back!" One of the attendants now raised the lid of our basket and courteously invited me to step out. Without stopping to give the thing a thought, I seized the leather and thong, sprang lightly up, and threw one of my legs over the side of the basket. Instantly, there was an outburst of shrill, ear-piercing exclamations of wonder, fear, surprise, horror, delight, and I don't know how many other emotions. For a moment I was startled and half inclined to make my way back into my basket again. Suddenly, however, it occurred to me what it all meant. The Umilumbas, being able to move their legs only backward and forward and utterly incapable of moving one leg without the other, were about as much astonished at seeing one of my legs come flopping over the side of this basket as I would be if you should throw one of your legs out sideways and strike your foot against your shoulder. As I sprang lightly to the ground and took a few steps toward King Go-Ru, who stood surrounded by his court officials, a very lean Umilumba on one side of him and a very fat one on the other, a perfect whirlwind of such cries as "pendulum legs," "walking scissors," "measuring man," "little man all head," etc., burst forth. King Guru received me very pleasantly, requesting me to walk, run, hop on one foot, cross my legs, he standing with wide open eyes as I went through my paces to please him. He then asked me my name, my rank at home, my profession, my age, what I like to eat and drink, how much heavier my head was than my body, etc. I made such a good impression on the king of the Umilumbas that he turned and invited me to spend some time at his palace. I was delighted, for I was very desirous of studying the manners and customs of these strange people and of conversing with their learned men. Suddenly, there was a great change manifest in the king's manner toward me. He listened with knitted brows and compressed lips, first to his fat counselor, then to his lean one. His lean minister, so lean that he appeared to me to be an animated steel spring snapping apart, was named Megazalto, or Great Jumper, no one being able to leap across a broader stream than the king himself. His fat minister, so fat that he was able to advance only by little hops of a few inches at a time, was named Migrozalta, or Small Jumper, and as he had for many years been unable to race about the country like the other Umilumbas, and had consequently had much time on his hands, which he had used to improve his mind, reading and studying, until he had acquired great wisdom. Hence King Garu's choice of him as royal minister and court adviser. I was again ordered to stand in front of His Majesty, the ruler of all the Umilumbas. "Sir Pendulum Legs," said he, "upon reflection, I am persuaded that thy visit to my dominions bodes no good. Thou must know that I have two privy councillors, to whose advice I always listen, and then do as I see fit. His Excellency, Megazalto," continued King Garu, pointing to his lean minister, "counsels me to command that thou be stomped and kicked to death at once, saying that thou wilt work great injury upon my people. Thou being a foreigner from a faraway land, they will endeavor to imitate thy manner of walking. Our good old-fashioned ways of walking will be sneered at, and my people's legs will soon lose their wonderful strength and activity. My other counselor, who is a very learned man and loves to discuss questions of race, manners, and customs with strangers, advises me to let thee live for several weeks at least, until he has had an opportunity to get some valuable information from thee. Now I am a quiet and peace-loving king, for nature, by surrounding my dominions with such a network of rivers, and giving us the power to leap over them, makes it next to impossible for an enemy to follow us. Therefore, little man, all head, it is my royal will that for the present no harm come to thee. Thanks, most powerful and graceful jumper in this or any other world, said I with a very low bow. I accept my life at thy hands in order to use it to make known thy goodness and greatness in every land I shall pass through. My delicate flattery touched King Garu very perceptibly. He smiled and nodded his little doll head in the friendliest manner. But Megazalto's fierce little face was screwed up in 1,000 wrinkles. I felt within me that he was firmly resolved to do me injury. Now there was another interruption. A shrill, piping baby voice suddenly rang out in a series of angry screams, while a score of other voices in soft, soothing tones could be heard as if endeavoring to comfort the screamer. I turned my eyes in the direction of the voices. To my surprise and delight, I saw coming toward me one of the female Umilumbas, advancing timidly with light and graceful hops, like a sparrow on the greensward. Her head and face looked for all the world like some of the wax dolls I had seen in Paris, only she was a trifle paler than they. It was the beautiful Princess Hapa Hapa. She seemed to be in a very fretful and petulant humor, and showed her peevishness in every movement. Nothing pleased her. She pouted, hung her head, and threw her baby arms about upon the most trivial provocation. As I learned afterwards, this all proceeded from her unwillingness to marry the lean, bony Megazalto, who was violently in love with her, and to whom the king, in a moment of some great contentment, had rashly promised the princess in marriage, and as Garu had in doing so taken the Umilumba's vow. May I never be able to jump farther than the length of my nose if I break my vow. He dared not break his word, and of course the old, thin, bony, wrinkled Megazalto insisted upon his sticking to the bargain. The effect of all this was to throw the beautiful Princess Hapa Hapa into a deep melancholy. In fact, she refused absolutely to partake of any food for so long a while that everybody said sadly, she will die. And we'll pause here and we'll continue with this story in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.